Hi YouTube and welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm going to give you a rundown of what I think are the most important updates and features for Snowflake from February 2023 through to November 23. Broken it down into categories, highlight the key ones and what they mean for you as a data engineer or solution architect working with Snowflake. So I hope you find this video useful. Okay then guys, we're going to start our journey off looking at the data governance category. And back in February, Snowflake made it a lot easier now to track masking and row access policies. This came into public preview back in February. The way that you used to have to do this before was to join a number of views together in the Snowflake metadata database and use the access_history view. Now there's a new column in there called policies_referenced, meaning that you can just go directly to the table without needing to have this complexity of joining views together. Second up in the data governance category is applying masking policies on external tables. Now this is the old way of doing it on the left hand side. So we've got your cloud service provider, Amazon, Google, or AWS. You've got your external table sitting out on your external stage. Previously, you had to create a view over the top of that external table and then apply your masking policy to that view to mask any sensitive columns. Now you can apply the masking policy directly to the external table with this update, meaning you don't need to put a view in place to manage it. Okay, so the next section is error and alerting and notifications. We've got Snowflake alerts now. So what's an alert? Well, it's a schema level object. You create it in Snowflake and you set a condition that needs to be met before it will trigger an alert. Now that condition could be to do with resource consumption, could be a data pipeline failing, or could be a warehouse number of credits consumed threshold. Once that condition you've pre-configured is met, it triggers an action. That action then can fire off and run a bit of SQL or stored procedure. Alternatively, or you could aim to integrate this into your SQL as well, you could send an email to a help desk or to your team to notify them that something has failed or there's an issue or something. In the same category, we've got error notifications on Snowpipe, and tasks went into general availability earlier this year. So for your Snowpipe or task, you can now push an error onto your event messaging system for your underlying cloud provider. So Amazon Simple Notification Service, Microsoft Event Grid, or Google PubSub. Just a note, there's no cross-cloud support for this functionality yet, so bear that in mind if that's part of your configuration and setup. Moving on to performance. So in February, Query Acceleration Service went into general availability. Now, what is Query Acceleration Service? Well, let's say you've got an extra small virtual warehouse and you've got a number of ad hoc queries hitting that virtual warehouse throughout the day, but the pattern is quite unpredictable. From time to time, you might get a very heavy query that really consumes a lot of the resources on that virtual warehouse. So in those cases, you don't want smaller ad hoc queries to be blocked and queued for a period of time. So how do you manage unpredictable queries and workloads on Snowflake effectively? Well, this is where Query Acceleration Service comes in. It allows you to configure it, set it up, tell Snowflake how many additional extra small virtual warehouses you want. In this case, we've said 4 times. Snowflake will then create a cluster when it recognizes your existing virtual warehouses getting to the point of consumption and holding other queries off. It will offload those queries onto this serverless compute that Snowflake's managing behind the scenes, completely independently of any manual intervention. Run your query, your bigger query over here, return the result sets to the calling user or application, and then decommission that. Obviously you pay consumption credits for it, but it's quite a neat solution if you have those unpredictable workload patterns as part of your environment. Next up, we've got Search Optimization Service. You can now specify a column. Previously you had to enable it on a whole table regardless of the columns that you were searching for. What does Search Optimization Service actually do, and where does it help you? Well, if you've got a huge table of millions and millions of records, it's quite wide, you might have a workload that's looking for a particular customer ID, for example. And so you might be very selective in terms of what you're looking for within your workloads and sort of filtering your queries down. How do you do that then? So, and Snowflake refers to these as needle in a haystack searches. You might come across that in their blogs and documentation. So how you respond to that? You can create a search optimization service. You can apply it to the column that you're filtering this massive large table on. It almost acts like an index for more traditional relational database management systems you might be familiar with. In addition, now this works on relational columns and always has done, but now it's got support for semi-structured data such as the variant, array, object, and geography data types in Snowflake as well. So really handy and well worth looking at if you've got very selective queries across big tables. Finally, on the performance section, if you're looking to try to identify those queries which are using a large amount of resources or taking a long time to run, that sometimes and previously has been quite difficult to get good visibility of within Snowflake, because you could have very similar query kind of patterns, but they may have slightly different data ranges, for example, or different workload filters. Now we've got the introduction of query hash and query parameterized hash within the Snowflake metadata database. You can look up queries which are similar but not exactly the same, and it will allow you to then aggregate performance metrics up and hopefully get better insight and visibility into where your performance bottlenecks might be at a query level. So that's performance. Okay, this is a big one. Stream and data ingestion. So two key announcements made in June time around Snowflake Summit earlier this year. Snowpipe streaming is the first one. It went into public preview. Now, Snowpipe streaming allows you to take row sets, rows, topics from Kafka, so event messages essentially, which are coming at you in low latency. It allows you to stream those directly into Snowflake at low latency without the need to stage it either externally on a cloud service provider or internally within Snowflake. You can stream that data directly into your staging or landing area within Snowflake very quickly. Hand in hand with that, we've got dynamic tables which complements this. So imagine you've got a Snowpipe streaming pipeline, streaming data into table A within your Snowflake environment. You may also have batch processes overnight, for example, loading table B. But let's say you've got a target table in Snowflake. You want to keep that up to date. So essentially you don't want to be running a refresh period all the time or polling for data changes, because it adds complexity. And that's previously what you had to do. You had to set up streams and tasks if you're using Snowflake's native out-of-the-box components. Now all that complexity goes away, because you can have a dynamic table, which is a declarative SQL statement that auto refreshes based upon a time limit that you specify, known as a lag. That can go down to 1 minute, and it can also be then extended in various increments based upon your use case. When that auto refresh increment kicks in, Snowflake will recognize if there's any new data in either of your tables that form part of your SQL query, and it will automatically refresh that, that's essentially what looks like a target table, but it's not actually materialized in the same way where you would create a table. It's literally a SQL statement. So if you're familiar with DBT, it's very much like creating a DBT model. You write your SQL statement, and that is what the output of your target table looks like and how it's represented. So combining Snowpipe streaming and dynamic tables together can really prove an easy way of being able to stream event messaging data in low latency into Snowflake and combine it with batch data or micro batch data and make that available to end users or applications. Finally, we've now got streams on views in general availability. That includes views and secure views. You can have a stream in Snowflake. As a quick reminder, and I'll put a little banner in the top corner if you haven't seen my previous video on streams. But essentially what that does is it's tracking for changes in your source systems within Snowflake. So inserts, updates, deletes. It will flag those, it will keep a change log. You can then process that, maybe as a merge SQL statement into a target table. You can now do it on views, not just tables. Okay, moving on to the next category, observability. We've now got tracing and logging with event tables as well as notifications in Snowflake. This was an area of Snowflake I felt was quite immature from the outset. It's rapidly improving now with a number of benefits and improvements in this space. First one, event table. You now can create a generic event table. The columns are predefined by Snowflake. You attach it to your Snowflake account. That allows you then for your applications to write traces to your event table, so you can track what's going on. You can also log from your stored procedures or various other functions which are happening and executing from your Snowflake environment to this single event table. You can also configure that then to different severity thresholds of how verbose you want your login and so on. You could of course create Snowflake dashboards over the top of the event table to get visibility into that. But also neatly it follows on to another announcement Snowflake made called notifications. This gives you a system send mail, system store procedure, which actually uses a notification integration, and it can work with tasks, store procedures, or interactive SQL sessions. So you can just pop that into your query window in Snowsight and execute that and get it to send an email out as long as you've got this notification integration set up. So something that wasn't there before, something that's quite commonplace in other relational databases you may have came across, but this is now available to use and be leveraged. 3 different categories on here: advanced analytics, marketplace, and business continuity. And the first one in advanced analytics, I just wanted to point out this, it was announced in Summit in June. At that time it was called ML powered functions. It's now referred to as Cortex functions, or even in some cases specialized Cortex functions, as Snowflake starts to evolve the AI ML space even further. Essentially what it does, it has time series, anomaly detection or fraud detection. Those kind of algorithms are packaged up, put into a SQL-based function, allowing your data engineers then to query these functions without necessarily needing to worry about the complexity of building these models directly. So it abstracts away this complexity, allowing data analysts, data engineers to run the SQL queries. Next up, we've got the data marketplace. You can now buy apps or data sets on the marketplace using capacity credits. So if you've bought a upfront based number of capacity credits, or lock in a discount with Snowflake, you may have some of those left over, or maybe easier for you within the processes within your organization. If you do want to purchase a native app or data set, you can use capacity credits. Just moving on to business continuity then, so we've now got data pipeline replication. So if you've got a primary Snowflake account in this region and a secondary Snowflake account over here in a different region, you can now automatically fail over your internal storage, your snow pipes, and your stages as well. So well worth considering if that's something applicable to your environment. And that's it. So we've reached the end. That was my whistle-stop tour of what I feel are the most important and most impactful updates Snowflake have released. Hope you found that video useful. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing. New videos coming very soon.